In this particular video, we are going to be creating an article. Now, I would say majority of your magazine, or even most magazines that are out there, are all based on articles and advertisements and just lots of words. So for your magazine, you're probably going to want to do the same thing. In this example, we've got a background image and just a lot of text and shaped differently. And I'm going to break it down how I created this particular page. Now remember, if you want to follow this tutorial exactly how I do it, you're going to need this background image, and the link is in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, then you need to go to this URL to get the links. It's bit.ly/year7 magazine. If you go there, it'll get you into the Google Drive folder with all of the assets for these tutorials. Okay, so let's just quickly break down before we get started what's on this canvas. So I'm just going to hide all my layers, and you can see we start off with the background image and then we start off with some text. So a lot of magazines, if you have a look at their articles, they always do this really cool thing where they have the first letter of the first word in the article or the paragraph really blown up. So I did that here, and I created A on a separate layer to the rest of the article. And if I just bring the article back, that gives that little look there, a little bit of that blown out effect with Ariana's name. Just added a few more text, but this time styled it differently, had some of the quotes enlarged and blown up, and then for this space here, I just filled it with some lines. So if I just open this line up, you can see I've got heaps and heaps of these rectangle shapes, and all I did was color them slightly differently so it created that effect. So again, a really simple page, but it looks quite good. I also added in the page number there to the bottom right, and again, you could add a whole heap more onto your page when you're creating yours. So let's get started. So we're going to go File, New, and remember, these are the settings. So this is a continuation from the magazine we were doing. So we're up to page 4.5. So you could name this page 4-5 if you want. I'm going to call it article. And basically the settings are exactly the same as our contents page, the double spread page. So the width is 1200, and make sure it's in pixels, and the height doesn't change, it remains at 800 pixels. Resolution can be anywhere between 150 and 300, and the rest should be as follows. So let's hit OK on that. All right, now I hope you remember how we get the little ruler down the middle. So if you weren't familiar, we go to View and we make sure that Rulers is selected. With Rulers selected, we're able to then pull out a ruler and actually use this as a guide, and it snaps when it comes exactly halfway. Okay, so I showed you guys how to do that in the last video as well. So now we know exactly where the page is going to turn. So let's start designing. The first thing you want to do is get that image, the background image, or use your own image, and that's in the Google Drive folder. So I've already saved that image, so I'm just going to go File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to bring that image in. There it is. I'll just stretch it out and hit enter to save. Okay, so now we're going to actually start bringing in some writing. And before we do, just remember you should be writing these articles yourself. Although I took a shortcut and just found a Vogue article with Ariana Grande in it and just copied and pasted that text, you should be writing your own articles. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to grab the T tool, the text tool over here, and I'm just going to draw a text box on the top left corner, and I'm just going to write the letter A inside there. Now the font I'm using, it's called Alexa Standard, or STD, Alexa Regular, so it's not bold or italicized, and I'm going to make it large, so that's probably big enough, just under 100 points there. And then I've got a text box with the letter A in it, and I can move it anywhere I like. Cool. So I'm actually going to move this. Actually, I'll leave it there for now. The next thing we want to do, we actually want to create some text. Now, don't do it this way just yet. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit better. But if I was to create another text box and start writing the rest of this article, so let's go, actually we might need to make it smaller, and also we should probably change the font type. Cool. Okay, let's just write a little bit. Okay, so I've got some text. Now, if I was to bring it up and put it there, what we want the text to do is actually wrap around the A and then start down here on its next line. So if I continue to do that, and if I continue to write, and what I might do is just copy and paste this text, what will happen is it won't actually wrap around because the text box stops there on the left side. So how do I actually get my text to go around my A? Well, here's a little trick for you guys. So I'm going to delete this text box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a shape. So I'm going to go down here. And you guys don't have to do this, by the way, but I just thought it'd be nice to show you. So I'm going to right click there and just select the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that fills up, doesn't have to be the whole page, maybe half the page or so, something like that. It doesn't matter what color it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom left here, and just above the shapes you will see, if I right click in there, path selection tool and direct selection tool. We're going to select the direct selection tool. We are going to right click and create an anchor point along this top line here. So we're going to go probably about here, and we're going to right click and add an anchor point, and I'm going to add another anchor point probably about here. So we've just created some anchor points. Now what I can do is actually I can peel this part over, and you might get a message that says this operation will turn the live shape into a regular path. You can say yes to that, and what you'll start to see is I'm starting to bend this shape. Now I want to bring that top left corner in, and then the next thing I wanted to do is see these points here. I want to actually bring this in as well, just to straighten up that line. There we go, it's a bit more straight, and we can bring this one down as well. And I can probably bring this back because it's, as long as we're not covering up the A, that's all we don't want to do. We want to be as close to the A as possible without covering it up. So that's pretty good. I mean, we could make it more perfect by pulling these in further and stuff like that and playing around with it. But that's pretty good. I'll just zoom out. So now what we have on our Photoshop page are two things. We've got the letter A, and we've got a rectangular shape, that we've kind of modified a little bit. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do is we actually want to write our article within the shape. So I'm actually going to get the article that I got here. I'll just copy that and I'll bring it over. Now, when we click on the text tool, you'll notice different things occur when you hover your mouse around the page. When I hover it over the shape, you'll notice it becomes a circle. Let me zoom in so you guys can see that. The circle allows me to use text inside the shape. So if I click inside the shape, it will now allow me to actually write that text inside the shape and not go outside. So if I pasted that article in there, you'll notice, and I'll just highlight a little bit more, maybe make it a little bit bigger. Actually, yeah, that's pretty good there. You'll notice that my text actually now wraps around the A. It actually goes on underneath the A. And now, obviously, we don't want the blue colored shape or whatever color your shape is. So what we do is we go over here to the right side where it says rectangle, highlight that, and we're going to bring the opacity down. So we're going to click on opacity and we're going to bring opacity all the way down. Now the shape is still there. It's just that we can't see it. But the text is still formed to that rectangle shape. So then we can manipulate that as much as you want. So there it is. So that's how I got my text to look like it wrapped around another letter there. Okay, so let's finish it off. We had part of the quote Ariana Grande had, but I just made it up. And we had it blown up. So basically what I did was created another text box. And I'll just create a text box here. And I changed the font and I also changed the size of that as well. And then we can bring that further up. Now for the bottom half, we can just do a normal text box. So just a normal text box like that, and then you can write your article in there. Okay, so I'll just grab that text from this side as well. Again, you should be writing your own articles. Let's do a new one. There we go. And there is my final article. And basically what you want to do is decorate after you've got your actual article in there. Maybe it's advertisement, whatever you like. Then you want to start decorating the page. So one of the areas I look at is where do I have blank space and what can I put there? So in this situation I had blank space here. So what I wanted to do was fill this with something, and I just chose to use shapes again. Now shapes are really cool. You've got different types of shapes. If you right click the shapes, you've got rectangles, ovals like a ellipse tool, rounded rectangles, polygon, you've got lines, you've got custom shapes as well. So if I click in custom shapes, right at the top here, you'll see that you've got a lot of shapes to choose from. Now, if you don't have as many as I do, just go over to this settings icon and click on reset default shapes or all shapes, and then you'll be able to see all of them. Now we're just going to be using a simple shape. We're going to be using the rectangle tool. So all I'm going to do is draw a couple of rectangles. So I'm going to draw one here like that. I'm going to draw another one next to it. I'm going to draw another one. You can vary the size if you like as well. Maybe have one longer, have one shorter. Now, once I'm finished drawing maybe 2, 3, or 4 of those, what you're going to do is, well, obviously, the first thing you should do is maybe change the color. So you can always change the color a couple of ways. At the very top, you've got fill, and you can change the color there. Or you can always go and double click on the rectangle or the shape you've created. So just here where the image is, if I double click on that, our color picker will come up and I'll be able to actually select the color I want. So I might just do that. I might keep my little black and white theme going. So I'll just gray these out. Now that I've got my 4 rectangles, what I want to do is actually duplicate them. So what I'm going to do is actually highlight all of them. So to do that, I click on the first one, hold down Command and click on all of the ones that I want to highlight. If you're using a PC, you can click on Control and then highlight the others. And then I go down and I find this button here. It says Group, create a new group. So I'm going to group the rectangle. And these are my lines. What I want to do is duplicate these lines. So I'm going to right click and duplicate the group. And now that my lines are duplicated, I can move them a little bit. And I can also change their colors. So I could go in there and change, maybe I want to make them a little bit lighter. And by combining shapes, what you can do is almost anything you can imagine. If you combine as many shapes as you can and you know, work on them, maybe even transform them a little bit, different sizes, and you could come up with some really cool effects. Cool. So I think that's good for now. You can always highlight all your groups and group them again if you wanted to clean it up like I just have now. So I've got groups within groups, just so you don't have too many layers. So now that we've created our article, I'm going to save this page. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to save it in our Year 7 magazine folder. I've named it Page 45 Article. I'm keeping it as a Photoshop file, and I'm hitting Save on that. And now we can go over to our InDesign document. And if we look back at what we've done on our InDesign document, we created a cover page, we created a contents page, and we've also linked them. And now we are up to our first actual article that's going to go in our magazine. So I can delete this little placeholder. I can go up to File, click on Place, find the Photoshop file that I just created, and click on the top left and drag all the way down to the bottom right, and then let go of my mouse, and there it is. Perfect. So there is an article. Now I showed a couple of advanced ways of doing text and shaping text using shapes and things like that. You can keep it simple if you want. Have a look on Google Images and look for magazine articles. See what type of ideas you can get. Get creative. See what you can do with your articles. It doesn't just have to be articles about the celebrity or whoever your cover star is. You could do a one-page or double-page spread like I have, where it's just an advertisement for a watch or shoes or something like that. So see what you can come up with your articles. Our next tutorial, what we're going to be focusing on, and if I have a look at our example, we're actually going to be looking at doing this. It's an image gallery, and basically what happens is as I move my mouse over the pictures on the right, the picture on the left changes depending on where my mouse is. So that's called an object state, and that's what we're going to be looking at the next tutorial. See you guys then.